For those who may be even living under a rock, this brand has climbed the charts, generated over $500 million in revenue,
Sheesh.
life to date. My man Ben from True Classic is here today to talk about the growth from just 0 to 100 million and beyond, how they kind of diversify channels, going from online to in-store, what that looks like, team management, what does the team look like from 0 to 100 to $500 million. Ben, thank you so much for being here today. Would love for you to kick it off. Just give a small intro for those who really don't or haven't heard of you yet.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you have heard about True Classic before? Raise your hand. All right. The awareness continues to grow, which is really good. All right. So for those of you who don't know about us, we are True Classic. We make people look good and feel good by developing fantastic clothing they would like wearing every day. I'm wearing our shirt. I'm wearing our jeans. I wear our underwear and socks that you won't see, but they're all really, really good. And what we have been able to really do is grow this brand very quickly from the ground up. We're bootstrapped the company back in 2019 without really any X factors. We don't have a celebrity backing the brand. We don't have any crazy product innovation. We have not raised a bunch of venture capital money to burn and grow at all costs. And yet we were able to do the quote-unquote unbelievable of growing past 9 figures in 2 short years profitably. And really it's on the back of just great product, great marketing, great execution. And what we've been able to do over the past, call it now 4.5 years, is move from being True Classic tees, selling T-shirts in the US on a website, on Shopify, to expanding our product assortment quite a bit, from T-shirts to 15 plus other categories, activewear, chinos, jeans, denim, to expanding our distribution from being just a sales channel, like a website on Shopify in the US, to being omni-channel in 190 countries worldwide. By omni, I mean direct-to-consumer, marketplaces, our own retail store, wholesale partnerships, and then moving our marketing kind of strategy from being primarily a Meta and Google brand to being more omni. So we're on TV, we're on podcasts, we're on direct mail, we do all sorts of different programs. I know we're here to talk about subscriptions, we have a membership program, and yeah, excited to chat about whatever you guys want to hear about.
Absolutely. So I want to kick it off, right? So for, I would say, a good amount of brands that are here, getting from that 0 to 100 million, there's a lot that goes into that, right? I want to talk about product first, right? The idea of getting a product into the market, especially something that's so saturated, right? How do you actually go about getting something like that into the market and really growing as fast as you really did?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what it starts with is just consumer empathy. And you're right. If I were to tell any of us back in 2019, let's go and start a T-shirt brand, you would probably raise a few eyebrows, like, what, are you out of your mind? But there was a gap. And the gap for guys was that nobody really made T-shirts that fit them really, really well and felt really good. And when they did, they charged an arm and a leg for it. So we were thinking, like, as simple as it sounds, let's make the best T-shirt in the world, focusing on those things that we knew people wanted, which is a really nicely fitting T-shirt that is really high quality, and offer it for a good price point. So we did a lot of research and development, primarily around the fabrication and the fit, and lots of different iterations, a lot of consumer feedback, hearing from people like how it actually felt for them. And when we felt pretty confident, we were like, let's give it a shot. So we launched the product, and the product market fit was pretty unbelievable. It's kind of amazing to see that you can still innovate on something that has been around since I don't even know what year, and still do this really well. I think the product alone is the foundation of a successful brand. On top of that, you have to have fantastic marketing. And fantastic marketing is one that doesn't just describe the product as here is a T-shirt. It's made out of 60% cotton and 40% poly. It fits you really well, right? It's going deeper into what is this consumer insight that we build this whole company around, and how do we speak to them in a way that would really resonate with their problems, and in the way that will make them feel the way they want to feel with our product in hand. So the marketing is actually another really big part we can talk about that I would not detach from the product itself. There's lots of really great products out there who don't really scale because they lack the marketing.
I agree. For those out here, right, in the audience, I'm curious, how do you guys survey your customers to get feedback? Hands up if you do, right? Keep your hand up if you do it maybe once a month. Not even once a month? Oh. I think for us at Avi, right, the core nucleus of the brand has been community, and that has been the reason why we've been able to maybe launch new products, kind of improve on existing products. So talk to us a little bit about how the product line from when you guys first started to even now, right? How important is the customer feedback in relation to the journey?
Incredibly important. And so we look at different metrics, some of which I think showing rather than telling is really indicative of whether you're hitting the market with consumers, right? So on the showing side, one of the metrics that I think you have to look really deeply into is the product repurchase rate. And once people do buy a product, it can be this bottle of water, it can be an Avi collagen, it can be a t-shirt. Do they come back and buy more? If so, that's a pretty good sign that they love your product. If they don't, you want to dive deeper into like what are some of the indications. So a product review rate and reading really diligently every negative product review you get to understand what might have gone wrong. Surveying those customers, right? And understanding like not only what they buy, but who did they buy it for? And what did they have in mind? How did that kind of experience once they did get the product in hand go for them? I'll take an even step further. Last week, we brought a customer to our all hands meeting. And we asked a lot of deep questions around how they first heard about us and what brought them into the brand, what products they've tried, what products they want to see next from us. That gives us a lot of insight into like who is in our consumer base beyond any stat or survey. On the post-purchase survey, we ask a lot of those types of questions as well to give us a little bit more of an impulse. Every single time when I'm seeing people in the wild and I ask them like, have you tried True Classic? It goes into a 20, 30-minute conversation, because I take that as an amazing opportunity to speak directly to the customer and really understand, like, did they have a good experience, what they like, what they didn't like. And then ultimately what it does is it builds for you this consumer empathy and deep understanding of, like, who they are and what do they want from us. And if you really put your brand out there as, in, like, I'm here to serve customers, I'm here to make them look good and feel good, I understand what does make them look good, what does make them feel good, what they might not like, then I can, over time, just make the product assortment incrementally better in terms of what we have and in terms of what we develop next. And that's kind of like the approach we're taking. We're really trying to build product for customers and not kind of like what we might have in mind.
I think the marketing messaging is very crucial here, right? Going a couple steps back of, yes, there's so many apparel brands out there, t-shirt brands, but it's the way that you make somebody feel, especially when they're on Facebook and on YouTube or whatever it is. I remember the first ad that I saw for the True Classic. It was funny. It was probably the first ad that I actually wanted to watch all the way through, right? So there's a delicate balance between performance marketing and branding, brand marketing. And I know Ankit and I get into a lot of fights there just because it's, whatever works on Facebook, that's all I care about. But if it's not completely up to the branding standard, Ankit hates it. So curious on your thoughts on like what that balance means when it comes to actually advertising.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because in my view, and not to sound between the performance and brand marketers here, but they're not as distinct as people would like to think about them. I think you can absolutely do branded content in a way that drives direct response. You just have to be thoughtful about all parts of it. So when people say, let's build a brand, like what does it actually mean? Consumers don't think about us in the context of brands, right? They think about it as like, hey, when I hear about True Classic, what comes to mind? What do I expect, right? And with us, they expect a great fit. They expect a great feel. They expect a great deal, right? And so we need to live up to those brand expectations. I would never want to put a piece of content out there that would create an association with something that is not on brand, right? We want people to know that we're out there to make them look good and feel good. We really mean it. So everything we do needs to communicate that. So as people see more and more touch points, right, they associate True Classic with a brand that's a good in the world and make them feel good, as in like maybe feeling more confident, right? Because it fits them really well. And so we take the lens of like, what do we want people to know about us? What do they want them to remember about us? What do we want them to do about us when it comes to the direct response? And we mesh all of that into the content strategy. Now, I would say that a lot of the times where direct response might fall short of the brand expectations is if it's just too transactional, right? Just like very number, price point, promo, static, etc. We're trying to be better at like storytelling and really creating that kind of like branded experience at the end of the day. And what I found is that the best ways to become memorable is to strike an emotional chord with consumers. So when you make them laugh, or when you educate them, or you make anything that's just going to stick to kind of like a better experience for them, that is likely to be recalled way more so than just another fill in the blank. UGC, maybe that just blends with everything else. And when you ask people about what kind of like, not just where you heard about us or what brought you to the store or the website, but specifically, do you recall what ad you saw or what piece of content? It is never, but never, any of our DR advertising. It's always that funny ad, that video piece of content on YouTube. And you start thinking like it just creates such an oversized impact on turning potential prospects into fans of the brand. And that's kind of like how we're trying to think about that. The problem with brand is that it's harder to measure. And obviously, without clear measurement, it's harder to prioritize. So we're trying to kind of like bridge the gap on all that, and do lead with some gut feeling around what feels right for the company at the end of the day.
Now, just to go off brand for a little bit, I don't know if everybody's seen their website or their brand identity. It's beautiful. It's pretty much what you would think a timeless brand should look like. You have that nice condensed sans serif font for your typeface, using a lot of neutrals. It's really, really beautiful. Was that you guys? Was that agency work? Did you have a vision for how you wanted that to look? Did somebody have an epiphany and draw it on a napkin like all of us did? How'd that go?
We've had so many iterations of that. We have gone through all the colors on the palette. We have days where we were all yellow. Now we're back to kind of cleaner themes, calmer vibes. We've had all sorts of fonts. I would say we probably, if you were to look closely, would notice some fonts inconsistencies and color inconsistencies, right? Yeah, of course it did. So I would say it's definitely not like this like perfect branding plan of let's create the perfect brand identity, be like super strict on the exact font and the exact like verbiage. And we're doing a lot of kind of like iteration, and we are not afraid of evolving the brand. You know, and like initially it was like when we dropped the tees and we moved from True Classic tees to True Classic. And then it continued through a bunch of different iterations on the visual representation, the tone of voice. You mentioned being funny. We have made a few kind of like, if you will, like over the line funny kind of ads over the years that backfired on us. So you learn, okay, maybe that was too funny or not as funny as we thought. And so you kind of like backtrack from that. And we have had a combination of agencies, internal employees, freelancers, always with the approach of like, how can we make this better? And we just make today 1% better than yesterday kind of mindset.
I love that, because so many people, I guess they restrict themselves from evolving as a brand. They see this brand identity and I have to stick to this. But I think when you have a brand, it's ever evolving and you have to adapt to what's going on in the industry. And that very well.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to get tactical. So 0 to 100 million in 2 years. Okay. For a lot of brands and operators out there, the first channel that we typically like to get on is going to be Meta, right? Talk to us about the journey from starting on Meta to getting on other channels. What does a brand need to do to be successful at growing with one channel, then entering another? What do you need for that to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's maybe think about it as like, and I'm going to put the logistics aside for a second, because I think that to me is easier to solve for. Obviously, you need capacity, right? You got to figure out the inventory, you got to figure out how to finance the inventory, you got to figure out how to warehouse it and handle the influx in orders and have CX agents handle those tickets. But to me, all that part is relatively easier to solve for. The harder part is on the front end, generating demand at the end of the day. And let's just think about it as like pre-website, on the website, and maybe a little bit of kind of like post-purchase. Pre-website, I would focus on just Meta if I had to pick one channel. And if you want to add a bit more, maybe throw in there like Google, right? I would not touch any of the other shiny objects, despite how appealing they might seem right now, right? So you might hear from all your buddies how they see success right now on TikTok, or maybe the Snap is coming back, or hey, you have to do podcasts. Like, yes, you can and should do all of that, but focus your energy on what has been proven to ramp companies. And frankly, if you do just Meta really, really, really well, you can go to 100 million and then some and not touch any other channel on the advertising front. The other parts that are really important in this equation is the email and SMS programs. So think about it as like you have Meta to drive out of the paid traffic. You want to capture those into leads. So you want to capture their email and SMS. And that to me is like an absolute core stack of keeping kind of like people coming to the website and coming back through the welcome flow. If they abandon their cart or checkout, you just keep hitting them back up. And that to me is core. Then on the website, you need to have a sense of what people call CRO, right? Like conversion rate optimization. But frankly, the way we view it is we're trying to maximize the net revenue and the gross profit per visitor on the site. And that takes into account AOV, that takes into account CVR, that takes into account our gross profit margin. But those two metrics are really helpful in understanding, like, am I growing the absolute net revenue of the company? And that's important because Shopify or any of the other platforms would mislead you on like what revenue actually is, because it takes into account sales taxes, if you're doing international duties, if you are, like, you might not think about kind of like return rates or all sorts of other things that you got to remove. So net revenue is really important to focus on. Same goes to gross profit because you want to know what you're left with. And it goes through like not doing too many things very well, but doing the basics of e-commerce really well, right? Have a nice homepage, have a nice product, basically a PLP, right? A product listing page, have a good PDP, a product detail page, have a good cart, have a good checkout process. I named 5 things. Do those basics really, really well. And once you do those really well, and you move to like landing page development, right? Maybe I should send people to specific landing pages from specific funnels, and that's worth your time, because if you are landing them in a place that tells more of a story, you will convert them at a higher rate. You might throw other things as you grow on like all sorts of bells and whistles, like cross-sell, upsell, post-purchase upsell, to just make that journey more successful. But at the end of the day, focus on those core basics, right? And even within that, like if you're trying to say, I want to like take a week to perfect my PDP, go out there, go on True Classic, go on Avi, go on all the brands who are succeeding and shred their PDP, see what they're doing. It's not rocket science. You can literally turn your PDP to look just as good in a matter of 1 week worth of work. You're thinking about the cart, same story. Who have the best carts out there? You guys inspired us with the gift with purchase. There's all sorts of good examples out there in the wild. So bring them into your brand, right? And that solidifies your kind of like your website part. And then on the post-purchase is we view CX as an incredibly important part of the company. We are affordable, but our customer service is nothing short of like a Ritz-Carlton or Nordstrom or Amex. We take those opportunities to make people like remember us, because if they talk to our agents, like, we want to go above and beyond. We want to surprise and delight. We want to turn this interaction into a story that they're going to tell around the table on Friday night, because they were just so blown away by how people showed up to them. And just to give examples, like we have a lot of females who buy for their significant others. And if a female, for example, told my agent that her husband needs a larger size, and by the way, my agent learned that she's expecting because they had a little bit of a deeper conversation, not only is he going to get the larger size, but she's also going to get a maternity package because we want to show up for her life moment. And that's going to be a loss for the company, because obviously we just sell t-shirts. We don't have margin to support that. But that is going to blow her mind away and have her tell this story for the rest of her life. And that's going to be something that we are going to bet on with every opportunity we have to show up to people, even if the numbers don't make sense. So that to me is a little bit more like, kind of like on the first purchase. And truly like the basics is like the customer is always right. We're here to make them happy. Yes, there's some bad apples in any customer base, but like really be there to show up for them. That brings them back. That creates loyalty. That shows up in other ways that are harder to measure, like word of mouth, right? And kind of maintaining a really high net promoter score. And those are kind of like the 3 stages I would think about. And then on the product assortment, I would start really, really focused. You don't need to have 17 product categories. You need to have 1 or 2 or 3 that you're doing really, really well, and go deeper on that. It will also help you with logistics. It will help you with inventory management. It will help you with a lot of other parts that are harder to do, logistically speaking. Focus matters a lot.
So you guys have been completely bootstrapped till date, right? When brands are typically starting off, like we said, people go to Meta, get some creative, launched, landing page launched, set up some ads and pray to the gods that they've made some money. What's your philosophy on being first order profitable? Are you guys trying to consistently achieve, profit on the first order, break even, or do you guys know your numbers because you guys are so large that you're not playing into this CAC to LTV model? Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. That is a huge superpower, and I recommend for all of you to absolutely try and figure out how to be first order profitable. That is a huge competitive advantage in being able to scale. Because if you're breaking even on the first order and you can continue to press the budget and generate more break-even orders, guess what happens? You bump a lot of net revenue up, you get a lot of more customers into the door, and that's a huge opportunity to scale. If you are losing money, you're living in the world of I got to be paid back. How soon can I get paid back? And do I have enough cash to support that? What happens if it doesn't turn as rosy as I thought and it takes longer to get paid back? Am I going to run into financial issues? Do I need to raise money for acquisition? So on and so forth. So I think that part alone is a huge takeaway. Absolutely strive for that. And to me, break even, I'm going to get a little bit more tactical here, is you need to know your P&L like the back of your hand. And that is, and still a very big missing piece in so many operators in the industry. And to me, it's every single line, payment processing fees, pick and pack, fulfillment, expected return rate. What does it cost you to process that return? Expected tickets and how much does it cost you to handle an average ticket with customer support? You get the idea. Every single line. Then how much you're spending on advertising, and it leads you to that line that's pretty magical on the P&L and should be your absolute focus, which is the contribution profit line. We strive to generate incremental, marginal contribution profit in everything we do. So when it comes to acquisition, if I get to a place where I have contribution profit per customer at 0, that means that I actually break even. That's a beautiful place to be because you can go and try to acquire more customers, and that's how you scale. If I'm losing money per order, I want to figure out how quickly am I going to be paid back, knowing my retention curves. And there might be different lines of product that behave very differently. My jeans line might look very differently than my t-shirt line, might look very differently than when someone, frankly, even if you can go deeper, you might learn that people who buy larger sizes are more sticky to the brand than people who buy a medium and large because there's fewer brands out there that do that really well. You might learn that people who buy black and white tend to, have a higher brand loyalty than the ones who buy seasonal colors. You gotta kind of really dive deeper into that and really understand your consumer base. And then it's absolutely an LTV to CAC game. And frankly, I would even simplify it further to it's an LTV game. And to give more clarity on how we view LTV, it's the cumulative contribution profit per customer. It's a single curve that you want to raise and bend over time. It starts with that initial order. If you're break even, the first point on the chart is 0. If you're making $10, it will be 10. If you're losing 5, you're losing 5. And then over time, how good are you at accumulating contribution profit per customer? And you want to basically raise that curve and bend it. And that is the single most important curve you can think about as an e-com brand, or frankly, pretty much any brand. And that's what we obsess over. And we try to think about ways to make orders more frequent. We try to think about ways to lower CAC. We try to think about ways to improve the gross profit per order. Maybe it's through a bundle strategy. Maybe it's through a post-purchase upsell. But ultimately, make the numbers work. And once they do, it's like magic because you can actually press the gas and scale the brand.
Makes sense. So when you guys are thinking, okay, we're going to go break even, maybe even make a little bit of money on the first order, all your profit is going to be realized on retention. That speaks to the product, the community, the customer experience, all of that, right? Talk to me a little bit about how you guys use the same mentality even now, talking through retail placements and things like that.
Absolutely. So retail, as an example, we use Shopify POS. So we get the full visibility on are those first-time customers to the brand or are those returning customers? We can also see really interesting journeys as in what does the cumulative contribution profit per customer look like if someone started online and stayed online, or started in a retail store and stayed in a retail, or started retail, went online, started online, went to retail, back and forth. Those are really interesting insights for us, not only from an overall curve, but what makes up for the differences in curve. We see really strong order, like profitability and LTV from our retail customers. What is it about? Do they buy different products? Maybe that's a signal for us to merchandise it better on our website to make sure that it gets the same level of visibility. Do they try more categories, and then multi-category customers just tend to be more valuable to the brand? And that's because they had an opportunity to experience with different things. So maybe the agent did a better job than when someone just browses your website with no guidance. And so we very much look at that in that regard. Amazon is a really interesting one because it's been a really tough journey with them to get to a place where we get visibility. But one thing that I'm super proud of, and I think it's industry leading, is that we were able to get Amazon to do a unified data room where we send our entire Shopify ecosystem and they send our entire True Classic Amazon ecosystem into a singular place where it can be matched. And for the first time, we actually see what is the overlapping for True Classic between the audience, right? Between the Shopify world and the Amazon world. And then the next level there is how can we actually connect those journeys? So if we started with a customer on Shopify, right? A lot of people are worried about, hey, would Amazon cannibalize my business? In my view, that's not the right question to ask. The question is like, would Amazon be accretive to your LTV customer? So if a customer moved from D2C to Amazon and now moved on that curve, is that curve raised and bent, or is that curve shrunk? What happens over there? Do they buy as often? Do they buy other categories? What does it look like from like the P&L structure? So we're trying to bring the same idea of like, even on the Amazon partnership, how do we connect the dots so we understand the omni-channel approach? Wholesale is the toughest because I don't have any solutions on how to get any visibility. So we have to more so think about the halo effect of like if we're doing direct-to-consumer well and we advertise naturally when people bump into us right now, we're at Kohl's nationwide. They might see us at Kohl's and they might take a few shirts because they saw us on Instagram or YouTube or TV. So it's a little bit more... just anecdotal, I would say, on like how we can tie the dots.
Makes sense.
Or connect the dots.
Just to back up for a second, we were talking about retail. In 2022, that's when you guys launched into retail. What went into making that decision? Because I know a lot of brands, especially us, we waited till year 4 to launch into retail. We went nationwide Walmart. But what goes into that decision? And can you talk about kind of the different business models that was D2C versus...
Absolutely. I mean, starting back with consumer, reality is that in apparel, still to this date, over 60 to 70%, depends on what research you read, of apparel is being purchased offline. Okay? And so if you really think about that, you know that we are playing in the smallest part of town. And then you talk to customers, and you can tell them all day long, every day, that we made the best t-shirt in the world, that is so soft, that it fits you really, really well. And you will illustrate that, and you'll do the before and after, or the contrast, or all of the stuff in the world. But they might be that sensory shopper who is like, dude, to believe you, I need to try this on. And with that insight, we went to like, how can we bring True Classic to kind of like in real life? Yeah. And we do believe that long term, it makes sense for us to be omni-channel. So we wanted to kind of tiptoe or like dip our toes into like the retail execution. Then we were thinking about like, what are the other insights we would be able to get, right? Like on the website, you might get good insights with like heat map solutions, and maybe you kind of record people's sessions and you can see what's going on. But the insights you get from seeing people in real life, interacting with your product, asking all sorts of questions, seeing what they touched, what they picked, what they took to the fitting room, what they come back, what they bought, are incredible. And that's like a huge insights engine for us. The other part is like, you're now out there in the world. A retail store, in my view, is the best version of brand marketing. And I would take a retail store over a billboard all day, every day, because it's a shoppable billboard. So it's bringing the DR to the brand world. So we're like, okay, there's value in like, we're going to large malls. We just launched in Mall of America, which is the largest shopping destination in the US. There's 40 million people visiting that mall a year. I don't know how many of them would pass by the True Classic store. But if you put some CPMs on a smaller subset of that, there's value. There's value in being out there in the world. It also adds credibility to who you are as a brand. To tell you we have figured out retail, no, we have not. We are trying to figure this out as we speak. But very similar to that mindset, my mindset with retail is if you can break even and then some in the 4 walls, that's a huge win because it absolutely has an impact on your online business. It has an impact from an advertising and awareness business. It has an impact from a consumer insights business. It has like outsized impact than just the P&L. And so if you're making the numbers meet and you're gaining all the other value, in my view, it's a win.
So just to clarify, you're using retail presence to essentially break even, right? So that you get people walking by the store, they see it, they want to try it on, this and that. But if you can break even here, all your efforts on D2C kind of get amplified a little bit more just because of the general awareness. You're using retail for awareness.
Yeah, but also if you think about growth, if you know how to produce boxes that are break even and then some, it's an incredibly scalable model. I can pop open 50 stores a year. I can pop open maybe 100 stores a year, depending on like how I staff the team. But I need a model that's working, so I'm going back to like very similar. If in direct to consumer, it's about acquiring customer to break even, where CAC meets the initial gross profit. In this case, like you create boxes that are breaking even, and then just think about taking more like this land grab opportunity, right? So that's the mindset I have with that, and then it becomes very cash efficient, and then you ramp. And also with retail, if you start, like it tends to get better over time. So the first year is the toughest, and then the second should be better, and so on. And so like if you're able to kind of like break even relatively early on, that's a great outcome, and then you can do more of that, and those stores starts to become profitable too, and you're bumping revenue.
So I think there's a lot of brands out there that are maybe not struggling, but they're questioning, okay, we're online, we're doing D2C, is the next step retailing, right? For you guys, it was owned retail. For us, it was big box retail, right? The Walmarts, the Targets. How do you guys think about that?
We are doing both. And I would not say necessarily that you should do your own retail before you do wholesale or kind of like going into the big partnerships, but we're doing both. And the mindset again is like our 10-year target is to empower 100 million people worldwide to look good and feel good with True Classic. That is a really big number. And everybody within the company is aligned towards like, how do we get there? How do we make that happen? Doing that direct to consumer is going to be virtually impossible, especially with like, where CAC is at and like diminishing returns, and eventually you're going to saturate Meta and so on. You have to like create that omni-channel presence, right? What the retailers bring to the table is incredible distribution, right? And you can't compete. Even if I wanted to have the best retail team in the world, there is no chance they would be able to ramp up our retail, call it physical retail presence as a whole, as fast as we would be able to do it through the partners. But what our own retail stores give us is other flavors to it, right? It gives us a sense of like the consumer. It gives a more like control environment about our brand and the experience. It gives us those kind of like insights to learn and grow. And the profitability, again, profile looks different. I would say that if I were to pick one, majority of brands should go for the wholesale retail version of it first before they try their own, because that is a distraction and that is a lot of work. You got to set up the stores. You got to negotiate the leases. You got to find a contractor to make the store what you want it to be. You got to hire the store teams. You got to train. You got to manage inventory. You got to do all sorts of different things. It doesn't come with like no headaches, right? With wholesale, there is also those types of headaches, but I would say it's a lower lift in my view than what doing your own and operator retail stores would take, especially if you're trying to scale it. So if I were to pick one, majority of brands I would probably recommend just going for wholesale. We're doing it in parallel.
No, that's great. For us, we got it to Walmart last year, August, nationwide rollout, which is obviously for a D2C brand is what I think is an accomplishment, right? But for brands that are eager to like get out of D2C because they can't make it work with like CACs, they think that retail may be like the saving grace. One thing that we faced was pricing discrepancies, right? So with Walmart, one of our top selling products was cheaper in store than it was online, right? And so naturally, when we did launch, we did a whole campaign around it, sent out a email blast to all of our customers, put banners on the website, started running ads saying, hey, now available in Walmart, thinking that having our product in Walmart just kind of solidifies the brand, right? And what we ended up seeing is our retention revenue declining month over month. we saw that conversion rate was dropping on our website for new customers, so our CAC was increasing, and we couldn't figure out exactly why because we didn't have that much data, right? And so 4 months kind of go by, we started to assess that everybody is now shopping offline, and all the new customers are seeing our ads to shop online. Then they're getting emails, SMS, texts a few days later saying, oh, you can pick us up at Walmart. So we're getting added to people's grocery lists, but people are not adding us to their cart online, right? So what we ended up doing is kind of separating the marketing strategies, removing it altogether, and separating, I guess, the focus, right? So we'll focus on Walmart on its own. We're not going to mix the DTC stuff. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that? Did you guys face any issues? Just dive into that.
Yeah, very much so. I would say that it's kind of hard, right, to like decouple that. So if you just put yourself back in the customer's shoes for a moment, right? And let's just say I'm a lady interested in your collagen, and I learned from you that you're available in Walmart, and I'm learning that you're cheaper at Walmart. Like, what reason do I have to go and buy from you directly? Right? Like, you're kind of out-competing yourself in that context. And so
and that's the problem with Walmart, is because they need the lowest price.
100%. And so it's a real challenge. And so the way we're trying to think through that, and we've had, our conversations with Walmart as well, is like we have to make moves that are solid for the greater good of the company or the brand. And so with any channel move, any partner move, there is always going to be good and bad. The good is there's going to be a lot of people who now shop Avi that would not shop otherwise. The bad is you might cannibalize some of your direct-to-consumer people to now shop you in a Walmart store and maybe lose margin altogether. And you got to kind of figure out, like, as best as you can, kind of where do you land on the balance of, like, is it all in net positive for the brand or not? And I think to your point, like, if you were to take that route, I would still think very much like you said, I would separate that. So I will try to kind of like shelter a little bit of my direct-to-consumer world and benefit from the world of Walmart that might be very kind of like incremental to the brand, and maybe not kind of like incentivize or push people to the realization that they can get the same product cheaper through a third party versus buy directly from us, right? In our conversations, price has been always the biggest sticking point, because of course all retailers are trying to push you to, like, lower prices. They want volume. They want to believe that your product is going to move. They want to have an edge over kind of like you directly. But we have, like, the reason we are, like, kind of like struggling with that is because we want to make sure that we are not cannibalizing the greater good for the sake of making one channel pop. And so we are trying to think about the pricing strategy for the brand, omni-channel, if you will, across all those different outlets, in a way that we feel is fair for the consumer. And with any one of the kind of like mass retailers, we're not willing to give the same exact product for a much lower price. If anything, it pushes us to think through, should we refine our product assortment and come up with, or develop other products, call it like the good, better, best kind of like strategy. Maybe we create good products that are slightly different and really fit that shopper and outlet better, but allows us still to kind of like maintain the brand integrity. So it actually pushed us to do a lot of those kind of like explorations on how can we still show up to the Walmart shopper on terms that work for Walmart and for us, and hopefully differentiate it a little bit from what we're doing online. But that's very much still work in progress, and it's easier said than done.
Yeah. So I want to go to SKU expansion. In 2022, you guys went from just t-shirts to activewear and bottoms. What made you was it something that you wanted to do from the beginning? Is it something that you had an opportunity to do? Why should somebody expand their product line?
So I would go back to like the purpose, and the purpose for True Classic is to empower people to look good and feel good. That is a pretty wide and broad purpose statement. And when we have seen such great success with the t-shirts, we knew confidently that we can actually help people so much with so many other categories. We didn't want to go too far away from kind of like the core. So we were thinking still like very much so the guidelines of a True Classic product, right, is it has to be timeless. It has to fit perfectly. It has to be made out of great quality materials. It has to be super, super soft fabrication. It has to be comfortable, right? So we have all of those things where it's like, if it doesn't check those boxes, it doesn't see the light of day, right? And then we were thinking through, like, what do people want from us, right? So if you think of an opportunity-wise, denim as a market is like 5 times as large as T-shirts. So opportunistically, if the brand can really crack denim, it's a really big opportunity for us. There is a lot of opportunity with denim because there is still lots of denim out there that are not comfortable, that are not fitting particularly well. And when they do, where you like pay, an arm and a leg, 200, 300 plus, and we know it's not, like, you don't have to pay this much to get a great quality denim. So that pushes us down to create our comfort jeans, which is like, honestly, a phenomenal garment that is really soft and fits really well and is offered at a much more affordable price point. And so we do those things with the consumer in mind. We send it to them. We have those like ambassador groups that give us feedback. They try that on. We fit on all sorts of different sizes. And when the feedback is really positive, when it checks all the boxes to what we're looking to expand. And then we go and try to see what the market tells us. And again, what is the repurchase rate? What is the average reviews rate? What are the negative comments? What are the positive comments? And then from there, we continue to kind of like expand that. Ultimately, in our current state is like we're trying to really help the guys completely refresh their wardrobe with everything that they need, right? And if you think about what you wear every day, a lot of people love to wear denim every day. Lots of people need underwears every day. They also need socks every day, right? So all of those products are like, they just make sense from what the brand really stands for, and we want to be there for the customers. You won't see us doing crazy things off the bat, right? And there's all sorts of crazy ideas. And we will shoot them down because it just doesn't feel like the right next move. But ultimately, we're looking to expand. I would say for all the brands in the audience, this is, again, another one of those shiny object syndrome moments. Don't touch all product categories all at once. You don't have to. Start with a core, solidify a core, and then continue to expand kind of slowly, but with the rhyme and reason of why you do that. If you try to touch too many things, you're going to run into too many problems. You won't have any focus on like what you really stand for. It's going to be really hard for you to tell great product stories on what made those other categories really come to life. And then ultimately everything would start feeling very mediocre. So you are better off really doing a fewer things very good than trying to touch all sorts of things all at once and kind of like not have anything really take off.
Yeah, that kind of, as you remember, this kind of happened with us in the very beginning. So we're a collagen brand. And when you're in supplements, you kind of want to jump on all of the trends. We came out with a sexual wellness supplement, and that just didn't kind of integrate with our audience and our brand. And we saw it didn't work. And we came out with a couple other SKUs that just did not fit with anything. So now when we do go out to create SKUs, we want to make sure everything works synergistically together and it makes sense for our brand. But now, there's a great example.
Yeah, and I would say just another tidbit there is make sure you not only have an expansion strategy, but you also have an exit strategy. So from your actual product assortment you already have, you do not need to keep doing everything you're doing. What should you exit and why? Elimination is really powerful. And that's one thing we do a lot of. We may have started too broad, and then we're like, let's kill all those colors. We don't need all those styles. We can consolidate fabrications. We don't need 3 different types of button downs, maybe just 2, one dressy, one like casual. Like, make sure you not only just think what more, but also where can less be more, and like really going back and consolidating what you don't want to kind of continue to do.
Absolutely right.
Is the efforts to expand the SKU line, is it more so focused for retention, right? You're acquiring a ton of customers. Is it to get them to come back, or do some of these new SKUs also help with acquisition?
I would say it's both. And it definitely, I would say one of the best retention strategies out there is product expansion, which I think most people would agree. It's a great way, right? In your case, like another flavor. In our case, maybe it's color, another style. People love it, and it gives them a reason to come back. But like when you develop a new product, I think you want to create it in such a way where it can be a standalone acquisition product too. As in, like, someone who has not bought anything from you might be interested in your sexual wellness supplement or in our denim, and you don't just stick in like, hey, I'm always a T-shirt brand, or I'm always a collagen brand or whatnot. So we don't cut kind of like that as a shortcut of like that's just meant for retention, and we try to create products that really stand alone Is it like you can create a whole company around just that? And we do have ads for prospecting with those categories. We do have retention flows to try and upsell, cross-sell, depending on where customers are in their life cycle in terms of like what is the right moment to hit them with that product. And what we're trying to figure out is like, is it viable? And what we've seen is, sometimes we've developed products we thought, okay, this can also be good with prospecting. But when you try to prospect, you just realize like I'm falling short of what I need to do. Maybe I'm not breaking even and my CAC is too high for what it generates, right? Or frankly, I lead with that product, and when I dive deeper, I realize that even though the ads are for this product A, when they come to the website, they buy product B, C, and D. And you're like, okay, maybe there is an issue here. And so we would eventually not kind of try to force it and either try to revise the strategy or figure out like, should this product continue to exist if we cannot prospect with it? That kind of like degrades the quality of the product in my view of like, does it serve that big strategic reason? Did it earn its place on our assortment or not? So back to the exit strategy. We can't prospect it, we do it super well, or we can advertise it very well. It's less interesting to us.
So try to boil it down, right? Look, we covered a lot of ground here. First things first, product is what matters the most, right? Second, go all in on that one product. Pick a channel. For most of us, it's Meta. Dial that in. How do you dial that in? With amazing creative, world-class CRO, right? And get the brand in a place where you've now actually developed the brand, right? You're not just overnight, all right, cool, got some sales on Meta. You've actually created a brand that people want to come back and shop from over and over again. Next step is Amazon, getting up on Amazon. For us, I believe Amazon is incremental, right? It's another channel that everybody should be on. Retail, probably the next step after, right? Whether it's, having conversations with big box, owned retail, right? Next would be SKU expansion, right? There's one more, which you guys crushed, and it's something that we've been trying to do. And I think a lot of people overlook this is internationally, right? So talk to us a little bit about how you guys thought of, just expanding internationally. What does it take to really make that happen?
Absolutely. So there is similar approach to all the different total addressable market anecdotes I shared. The international market for in apparel is 4 times as large as the US one. So from an opportunity standpoint, we are playing or used to play in 20% of the global market. We didn't develop a brand that's like fashion forward, where it's like, hey, these trends or these fashion lines, like it's only in the US, right? We went after staples, we went after timeless classics, and it's very much a great product for lots of people worldwide. And so kind of like we believe. And so the first thing we did was like, look, let's make ourselves available, right? There is partners for that. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Global-e, or there is the Shopify Markets Pro. There's others. We partner with Global-e and Shopify and kind of like made ourselves available. To start, it's all a localization game. To start, we were just localizing the payment methods and the currencies. The entire site was still English. Our creative, our ads, our email, everything was English. And we just made ourselves available on Meta to see what happens when you open the borders and advertise worldwide, right? So you made yourself, like you basically are able to now fulfill orders internationally. We didn't set up distribution centers. Everything went from our same distribution center with one that literally served the entire world. Before now we have quite a few more, but we started with one. So don't go crazy with like, let me create all these distribution centers and get closer faster to no, start MVPing it. And then you open it up, and what you are most likely to find out is that there are certain markets that you're more likely to resonate in more so than others. And the big ones you're most likely to find out success with are Canada, the UK, Australia, right? Like kind of like big English markets. Why? Because you're not too far, right? Like you're speaking their language. You have products that like resonate. They are used to buying from American brands. So that's a good first step. Maybe then you start seeing, oh, I am having success in Germany, or Mexico is an interesting opportunity, or Israel happened to like our products, or whatever the name of the country might be. And it's very opportunistic. Once you start seeing success, you start asking, okay, how can I do this better? The name of the game is localization. And I mentioned the localization of the payment process, like the payment types or methods plus the currencies. But what you described is really key, which is content. How do you create content that resonates with people in all those markets? How do you show, instead of just American UGC, German UGC? And you show a German wife buying True Classic for her German husband and raving about how amazing he feels in our clothing, right? That would go a much, much like longer length, if you will, than what we're trying to do kind of like initially. So what do you do then? You start looking for agencies and you say like, I need translations help. I got to find the local influencers. I got to do whitelisting with whoever is like trending over there. And you start seeing kind of like better success. And when you see better success, you're like, okay, now I have a bigger market. How can I serve it even better? Okay, time for maybe thinking about a distribution center. So let's go set someone up or something up so you are closer to those customers and you're able to ship to them faster and cheaper. When you're able to do that, you become more competitive because now you have a more favorable cost structure and you can turn again more of those dollars back into advertising and so on and so forth. I would say the beginning though, find a partner like a Global E, put it on Meta, don't go crazy with any distribution centers, find your best performing advertising kind of like channels and creatives and just try it out, see what happens. And then just follow the data and chase the opportunities for your brand is probably the best guidance I can provide.
So we talked about a lot of different things. Obviously, 0 to 500 million is there's words can't even describe it. One of the last things I want to talk about is team, right? And organizational structure and culture. How do you guys think about the team from when you first started to year 1, year 2 till now? How did that change over time? And what are the important things that brands need to do when it comes to culture and team?
So one of the things I would recommend heavily is a system called EOS, which is Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it has six components in it, one of which is the people component. And the whole idea there is that you want to get to a place where you have the right people in the right seats. Starting with the right people. Right people are people that live and breathe your culture, norms, and values. It's really important that you take time to identify what are the values of your company. And the best way I can think about guiding you on that journey is think about the people you love most. Think about the people that if they do not show up to work tomorrow, you are screwed. You are like, I have to figure out how to retain them. And then start listing what is so great about these people. What is it? Are they proactive? Are they data driven? Are they detail oriented? Are they kind? Are they empathetic? Like, what is it? And you start actually coming with things you value in people. And you're like, when you show me those traits, I am really happy with you. And then you start thinking about like, okay, how can I coin that into legitimate values for the brand? And I'll give you ours that you can go out there and say like, this is what we value, meaning this is what we believe to be important in order to deliver on that purpose, in order to make that vision a reality. So for us, starting at the very core, it's move the needle. Because this is a company that's all about driving tangible results. It's not about how many hours you worked. It's not about how many calls you have had. It's about the tangible impact you have made. And that's what we value. Anybody that moves the needle for True Classic is a welcome member on the team. And everybody knows that that's what we value. So they try to think about what can I do in my day-to-day to help move the needle. And the needle can be net revenue. The needle can be gross profit. The needle can be EBITDA. The needle can be CAC or LTV. It can be all sorts of things. But you have your needles and you move them in a positive direction. There is 5 values underneath that support that notion of moving the needle, which is going fast because we believe that done is better than perfect. It's executing as a pro because we take pride in our work and we are not reckless. We have SOPs and decision frameworks and we believe that execution matters a lot. It's being creative because creativity is not just in the ads, but it's in the way we solve problems, in the way we think outside the box. Frankly, we don't see boxes. It's leading with empathy, and I mentioned earlier how we think about the consumer, and this is a consumer-led company, and we're thinking about who they are and what they need and why they care about us. And the last but not least is harnessing grit, because at the end of the day, this shit is hard, guys. Really, really hard. And you need people who are able to wake up in the morning, day in and day out, and just push through? Do they have the determination? Are they self-motivated? Do they have that passion and perseverance, right? It's really important. So that to me is values a true classic. Now, right people, back to EOS, is people who embody the values. If they are not those values, they shouldn't be on your team. And you might learn that over time, some values are exhibited, others not so much. But you start ultimately kind of like course correcting towards, we want people that live and breathe those values. That's the right people. Right seats is people who get it, or people who want it, and people who have capacity to do it. The get it part is a really tricky one, because someone might have gotten how to do Meta really well, but now that you need to do Google and TV and Pod and whatever, you start wondering, well, do they still get it? Or do you need to bring some support, right? The business changes all the time. Frankly, every month looks different. And so some people get it enough and evolve with it and grow. Others are left behind and you start thinking like, well, for that role, it's just expanded so much in scope. I need something different. I need someone who really gets not what brought us here, but what's going to get us there. So you have to have those kind of hard conversations. The wanted part is like they need to really, really want it. They can't be feeling like they're doing you a favor by being on the team. They can't feel a sense of kind of like entitlement of like, I'm just here. They need to really want to be there. And when people want to be there, it shows, right? They bring the energy, they bring the positivity, they bring the solution-oriented attitude. And capacity is just that they need to be able to actually do it, right? If someone is on a maternity or paternity leave, they don't have capacity, so they can't occupy the role. If someone has 5 roles, they probably don't have the capacity to do any of them particularly well, so let's move them to another. So when you have kind of get it, wanted capacity, you start thinking about that. People might move around. Some people might, frankly, transition out. Other people might come in. And we've had our evolution as a team, right? And it's been a positive evolution because as the company evolves and grows, so are the people. And some people really also enjoy different stages of growth, right? Maybe you are the kind of guy who just wants to ramp businesses from the ground up to 50 million. And once you're past that stage, you're not interested in the bureaucracy and all that. You want to go back to I want to get the next brand to a 50 million, right? So help people find that about themselves and help them like land in a place where they can continue to experience that. That part of True Classic is over. So now we need to bring the next people who are excited about taking a company from 200 to a billion, right? And like, what does that look like? And who are those individuals, right? So it's always kind of like evolving. I would say that nothing comes close to getting the right people in the right seats. That's the absolute most important part you need to focus on as an operator. And you need to be relentless about this. And there's a never-ending journey of hiring and growing and motivating and incentivizing the right people to be on your journey. And frankly, one other thing is that it's the hardest part that I don't think people talk about enough for any operator to get right.
Love that. Well said. I had one last question. You have the successful brand, you have amazing products, you have the successful company as a whole. My logical next move in my head, outside looking in, would be expanding the female. That's something you guys have talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only talked about it, but I've been actively working on. Females is a big one. And going back to TAM, it's a much larger market, but it's also a much more competitive market. It's a much more saturated market. And I'm a dad to 2 little girls. I'm married, right? I females run my world, but excuse me for saying it, females, but they're more complicated, right? They are more complicated to please. And if I observe my wife's behaviors at home, she orders a whole host of things and 90% goes back, right? And that's how they shop. And so it scares me a little bit. Guys are kind of simpler. They just take it. It looks good. It feels good. Okay, I'm good. I'm done. So we are really doing a lot more diligence and a lot more scrutiny to make sure that, like, if we are attempting to try and please women worldwide, make them look good and feel good, we're doing a really good job. The product is really damn good, right? It does everything she's ever hoped for. And so I would say that the development process has been a lot slower. We've gone through a lot more iterations, lots more like feedback sessions, and we're not ready, but we are actively working on it. And I would say it's more of a question of if rather than when. We are going to do the female expansion. There's other considerations too of like, do I create another brand for the female version of True Classic, or do I roll it under the True Classic name and kind of like make it kind of like for both? there's pros and cons to both.
Fair.
What do we start with in terms of the assortment? Like, what would she want from us? And we do have lots of female customers in the base. They just primarily buy for their significant others. Frankly, though, we actually also have females who buy our products for themselves. They just love our shirts or they love our joggers, and they just enjoy it. So they learn about it from their husband and wear it. So more to come.
Love that.
So we talked about a lot. Want one more thing from you. One thing that you want the audience to chew on, take back, implement in their business today. What would that one thing be?
One thing, man. We talked about 1,700 of them. Okay, let me think about one that's really thoughtful. I would say get a really, really good handle on your P&L. Like really, really good handle. As in like, make sure you have daily visibility. We actually have hourly visibility within True Classic because all your decisions ultimately ladders up to that. And this is a tough environment where you are going to get destroyed if your P&L is not in good tip-top shape. There's no like extra money out there to save you. People expect profitability. And you need to know how to drive that. But it starts with really, really clear visibility. So if there's one action item for all of you brand operators out there, is get a super solid daily read on your P&L, every single line, and understand how you move those needles so you turn your business into a profit-generating machine.
Chew on that.
If you want more from us, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, and check out the website chewonthis.io.